What's some of the best storytelling you've ever experienced? The first season of Game of Thrones? A live production of Hamilton? A particularly dramatic episode of Paw Patrol? For me, it's at Le Swan on Queen Street, one of my favorite restaurants. Food is definitely one of my love languages, so if you ever meet me in person, please bring a snack. I love when you find story in the places you least expect it, especially when how the story is told is tied to a very tangible outcome. And when it's done well, ordering at a restaurant with a good server is a masterclass in storytelling. You walk in, you see a menu, it's either too complicated, what the hell are chanterelles and spring songs, or too simple, tomatoes, greens, and olives? What is this, a supermarket? I know nothing is speaking to me, and then the magic happens. Hi friend, how are we doing today? While you get settled in, let me tell you about today's special. It's the chanterelles in a white sauce. They just came in this morning. A team of blind monks forage them every morning using a special chanting technique. We need to get them here within a 30-minute window before the frost melts. Let me just double check in the back because we might only have a few left. Trust me, this is definitely our house specialty. You don't want to miss this. I'll take 2, please? Masterclass in storytelling. I love the intersection of things I maybe didn't care about and how I got convinced to care about it. And no matter what the topic or environment, story matters. And certainly in what we do. It's how we connect and assign value to things, which is at the core of most of our learning challenges. Yet in L&D, no one really denies that storytelling is important. But whenever we try to bring it closer to what we do, it's like we're being asked to build a rocket to the moon, as if I'm telling them the only way to learn about the universe is to become an astronaut. Why is it so unnatural? And the funny thing is, it's not story that's unnatural. It's training. Let's face it, story is a good product. It just needs some good PR. And I'm looking at you. Let's get your first story off the ground. Because once you tell one story well in your organization, everyone's going to be wanting the blind monk chanterelles. Hi, I'm Josh. I'm an enterprise learning leader and strategist with over a decade's experience helping some of the world's leading organizations transform how they view learning. And welcome to Digital Learning Done Right, a place for you to get the mindset, motivation, and meaningful action to go out there and kick some L&D butt. I don't know about you, but that opening segment got me a little hungry, so I'm gonna go get a snack. I'll be back. All right, you ready? Let's go. Today's episode's brought to you by the word find. Find. Not as good as found, but certainly the most actionable F word you can use in L&D to help you move the needle. So let's find 3 things to help you be the PR rep that storytelling so badly needs in your organization. The first find is to find the flip from training to story. I've never met a person in their life who has looked forward to training. I know more people who like cough syrup and ice baths rather than take one. We're really good at sniffing out training as well and changing our expectations immediately when we know it's coming. That's why you need to flip the script. Don't make it feel like training. Make it feel like story. The server in that restaurant didn't show up by saying, "Oh, we have chanterelles on the menu, but first, please take this 10-minute training on the value of chanterelles and why you should buy it." There'll be a knowledge check at the end with your bill. Finding the flip is a point of immersion. If you've ever done an escape room, think of that moment where the door is closed and everything has just flipped. Suddenly you're transported to a different world. That's what flipping the switch should feel like. Here's an example of what that looks like, but how there's a story way and a training way to approach a topic. Don't care about Formula One? Yep, neither did I. Until I, like millions of people around the world who were bored in isolation, said, why the hell not? And watched Drive to Survive, one of Netflix's biggest wins in the last few years, dramatically increasing the popularity of the sport. But the brilliance about Drive to Survive is not in its ability to be a good documentary, but its ability to extract story. I mean, they did the whole first season without even mentioning the biggest name in the sport, Sir Lewis Hamilton. That's like talking about Pokemon without Pikachu, basketball without Michael Jordan, or saying Romeo and Juliet's a story about Montagues and Capulets. It takes courage to do that, but actually, it takes story. The training way to describe F1 is, well, super expensive cars, drive around a track, people win, lose, sports, go team. But it's the story of F1 that it's the reason why it's the hottest growing commodity in sports right now. How it frames heroes and villains, the old guard that refuses to let go, the new kid that came from nothing and is living his dream, the champion that cares more about inclusion and representation, and the talented villain whose number one strength is that they will do anything to win. Drive to Survive's not a documentary. It's a soap opera, and it is perfect. It found the flip. And it's not like the learning is lost. It just pivoted. Watch the first episode of the series if you want a glimpse of that. There's this just-in-time commentator teacher who pops in every once in a while to say, don't know much about the grid? Let me tell you how it works. Did you know there's also a driver's championship and a team championship? They're not going to interrupt the story with training, but they're going to find a perfect way to interweave it with the right moment of learning. As an F1 fan now, I actually look back on this series and I'm surprised how little it actually has to do with the racing. If you told me that tire temperature is a big factor into why people win or lose, I would have turned off the TV right away. But when you extract story, you reach a broader audience and you get them to care. And when people care, they're willing to be taken in all sorts of directions. Getting to story means flipping the switch, and you need to find that flip. It means telling your team that, look, there's a training approach and a story approach, and we're going to use story to get to the training. There's a certain feeling that comes with story. What's the feeling of training? Well, there is none. Which brings us to our next find. Find the emotion. This is especially hard because we tend to focus solely on facts and information, and rightfully so. Emotion doesn't have an intuitive place in learning, when it really should. We spend so much time speaking to the rational brain. Why can't we spend more time talking to the emotional one? Because that's the one that truly listens. If you're using empathy maps, go look at those hopes and fears, because there's a story to be built there. Finding emotion is finding the story, and yes, it can be found everywhere. Let's do a few examples. New hire training. Find the emotion of a first day on the job, the anxiousness, the excitement, the confusion. Think of someone who's been working 20 years on the job and finally decided to come join your organization. Or someone who is entering the workforce for the first time and doesn't know their email signature from their out-of-office reply. How are these people feeling? What sort of emotions are going through their heads? And how much easier will they be able to learn once they feel connected to their organization? How I feel about this training is really going to determine what I take away from this training. How about sales training? There's a lot of emotion in the highs and lows of a sales cycle, or trying to get the organization to buy into a new way of selling. Do you know how hard it is to get a top performer to do anything that isn't their way? Let me tell you, typical training is not the recommended approach here. But there's emotion to be found in the ups and downs of trying to make your numbers, or even better when you connect it to your customers and what you're actually doing with your offering. It's bigger than revenue targets. It's about delight, happiness, or even changing lives. There's emotion there, and use it to unlock your training. Or how about leadership training? Talk about an emotion-full environment. There's nothing more vulnerable in the workplace than being a leader and truly caring about your team. Tell the stories of the struggles of that first-time leader who was previously peers with her new team and now she has to lead them. Talk about what she's going through. Tell her story of her first week, of her first year. There isn't a more human topic than leadership training. It'd be pretty easy to find the emotion in there. Once you've found emotion, use it as a building block. Because if you've connected with me on an emotional level, I'm listening now. You get what I'm going through. I trust you. I believe in you. I believe you can help me. Think of that moment with the menu. Without emotion, Chanterelle's is just another item in a big list of things I don't really relate to. We need to get people to feel more in our experiences. Because how you feel about something is more important to actual outcomes than what you know about it. The last find is the light at the end of the tunnel. Because the hardest story you will tell will be your first one. But the good news is, you don't have to do it on your own. So just find what's already working. Storytelling is exploring another world, but the good news is other people have been working on this world, so you don't have to. Borrow a framework, a story structure. Every story is kind of the same. I mean, just watch The Lion King followed by Black Panther, and you'll see what I mean. They all share things in common, and you already know most of this. Rising action, falling action, conflict resolution. You just need a framework to organize your thinking. Tell you what, after this episode, ooh, look at me, I'm assigning homework. That's some real Series 2 stuff you've got going on there, Josh. After this episode, look up 3 common frameworks for story. The 3-act journey, the hero's journey, and the snowflake method. Start there. And then, literally straight up copy good stories. Actually, satire is a fantastic entry point to story, especially in a corporate setting because then you're working with some prior knowledge. Back to the Future, Rocky, Frozen, do whatever you want. This is actually a fun exercise for your next team meeting. Pair a topic with a movie. What if it was sales, but Die Hard? What if it was leadership, but The Matrix? What if it was safety training, but Mr. Bean? Another exciting collision is to take a story framework and pair it with the learning framework. For example, pair the hero's journey with the 5 moments of need. What were the moments of need in The Lion King? When did Simba need to learn something new? How about when things changed? I still can't watch that stampede scene. And from there, just start to freestyle. This is also a great way to do learning journeys, because now you can do something episodic and leave people with an element of suspense. Oh my gosh, are we starting to have fun here? What you borrow doesn't even need to be in such a long form. Sometimes the best storytelling you can do is just a non-training. You know what's a great story in a sentence? Whenever you pass through a construction zone and you see a little sign with that cartoon drawing by a kid that's like, "Please be careful, my parents work here." Another great example of thinking in terms of story versus training. We talk a lot about how this meeting should have been an email. How about this training should have been a story? It doesn't need to be a novel. It just needs to evoke emotion, no matter how big or small that moment. Don't be afraid to tell a bad story, because it's still better than a non-story. You don't need to reinvent the story wheel. Just find a wheel that works for you and start driving. I'll never stop harping on about storytelling, not because of its value as a tactical tool, but a strategic one. Story just needs better PR. It needs to be sold better within our organizations. And well, seeing is believing, so focus on your first story. The more you learn about the brain, the more you realize how ridiculous traditional training is. The question isn't how do we bring more storytelling into our organizations? It's why do we keep insisting on legacy ideas around training when you know that's not how the brain works? Whether you're ordering at a restaurant or building that next training, storytelling has a clear role to deliver outcomes. It's a strategic imperative, and don't underestimate its ability to shift attitudes and change behavior. Your learner's about to step into your L&D restaurant. What are you going to serve them? And what's the story you're going to tell about it? That's all for today. If you like this episode, tell a friend. It's the best way to support the show. And well, it's just a better way of saying like and subscribe all the time. Want to continue the conversation? Come find me on LinkedIn or go to digitallearningdoneright.com for more, or if you need some help with your own storytelling. Next time, we'll talk about TikTok, the dentist chair, and L&D's key new battleground in the attention economy.